All right, let's look at how fairy wings can be attached to a girl. You can just, of course, stick them on there, but you want them to kind of follow along with the pose and stay out of the way as much as possible. So if you'll notice that whatever pose she's in, if I move, say, her arm, the wings kind of stay out of the way of the arm. If you put it far enough back, it'll actually start to intersect, but we'll see how we can fix that in a bit. But for the most part, if you do start posing her, the wings will do the right thing. They'll stay out of the way, they'll move along, it looks kind of natural. So pretty good stuff. And the way you do this, you have two sets of bones. The first set of bones you have in her rig. There are 3 bones that are involved here, one of which was already part of the rig. So her upper arm here is part of what makes the wings do what they're supposed to do. This little bone here, which kind of tracks what she's doing in the pose, and this other bone that kind of helps it decide where it should be pointing. So this bone back here is called a wing tweak. And the point of that was originally that if you, say, move it or rotate it, then you can adjust where the wing is. But for now, because that's the naming is wing tweak, it actually isn't used for tweaking anymore. Now it just helps with a constraint, a damp track constraint that's on this other bone. The wing has its own armature, and its armature is a child of this bone, which I call wing attach, which then is actually named correctly. So the wing attach has 2 damped tracks. One is tracking her upper arm. This tracks to about 0.8 on her upper arm. This way, as her arm moves, that green bone there tries to point to her upper arm, and that way, as her arm is moving to various locations, the wing largely stays out of the way. But you don't want it fully to that, because there are times where she will be in a pose that is quite extreme, like her arms directly above her head, for example. When she does that, if you just have that bone pointing at her upper arm, in this case it would be pointing straight up, and her other wing would also be pointing pretty much straight up, and then they would intersect with each other. But because they are pointing at her arm as one constraint, and pointing at, better click this, pointing at this wing tweak bone over here with the other constraint, that keeps it from going all the way to follow her arm. And so this works for 90% of situations, but there are times, like in this case, there's another character in the scene and the wing is going through her body. And so you could add physics, as always, you can create a little box around the wing and box around the other girl and keep it from intersecting. But if you're only occasionally doing this, that's probably a bit too much. So the final thing that I do is I have an entire other rig for the wings, which I can then tweak. So let us get rid of all these other layers for her armature, get out of that pose mode, click the armature for the wings. And so there's more bones here than what we can see currently. I guess I'll just turn them all on so we can see them. There's 3 bones per wing, one for the top wing, one for the bottom winglet, I don't know what you call that, and then one in the center that these are both parented to, so that when you can't see these, this one in the center can control both of them at the same time. So see, if I rotate this thing in the center, it rotates both the top and the bottom at the same time, for example. This one in the center is the one that is a child of that wing attach bone that's in her rig. So that way, the bone, or this armature here, follows that one bone in her armature. The other kind of trick that is interesting about this is that this bone out here it's not an actual IK, it's just a stretch to. So there's this bone, and this bone here is a bendy bone that is a stretch to this bone out here. That way I can rotate it, I can move it, and as I move it closer to her body, because it's stretching, it kind of compresses her wing or stretches it out, does what you want. So for this particular pose, of course, the problem is, and I'm just going to turn off these extra bones, there's not a whole lot to them. It's obviously a very simple rig. So in this case, I might say, well, the wing is intersecting up a little bit. Like, let's pull it back here first, and then let's take it and rotate it a bit, let's say on the z-axis. Okay, so now it's being pushed out by the other girl. Okay, look, it's still intersecting with her arm. Okay, well, then I can tweak it some more, right? I can rotate it out. Okay, now it's perfect. Doesn't intersect, life is good. So then you can actually pose this, and you can pose and animate that thing. So that is the extent of the rig for the wings. It might be important to say a little bit about the wings themselves. These wings are these are modeled with actual holes in them, so holes in the geometry, so that they are transparent, but the transparency is caused by the actual holes in the wings. This might not be the best look for you. You might want them to be actually transparent. I do have another set of wings that I don't want to find them right now. There's another set of wings I have that are solid but have an alpha mask on them so that they are actually see-through when you're looking at them in render mode. So your mileage may vary. Decide what you want. The The problem I'm finding with having wings with actual missing geometry here is they don't quite deform as well as I would hope. So when I take this wing, for example, let's say rotate it way far forward, you'll see these two little white scales here are just kind of floating here. They're left over from, or I should say they are incorrectly weight transferred, I guess, from the when I did the armature binding. You can fix that with doing manual weight painting after you bind it, go through and weight paint. I, for whatever reason, just refuse to do weight painting. I want automatic weights. So I still have to figure that out. Once I figure that out, then I can stop worrying about that. Notice like when I stretch this wing, that bottom wing is moving a little bit with it. I'm still not sure why that is. This bone is on the other side of that wing, and this bone is on this side of this wing. Like you would think that that would keep them from grabbing each other's influence, but somehow they do. I guess that's what weight painting is for. Maybe one day I'll learn how to weight paint. So in the meantime, that's how this setup works. Probably can work for you if you are willing to do the weight painting. This probably is all you need. So I guess that does it. Thanks for watching.